through Northern Ireland during the evening, but then becoming more extensive across Scotland, Wales and northwest England. The winds continuing to strengthen as well. It all adds up to a fairly blustery day on Friday. But with the winds picking up, it won't be as cold overnight. We'll start Friday in double digits for quite a few of us. Then, for the details for Friday, it's all about tracking these bands of rain swinging through. Probably not too much rain. Of course, he's dangling in the southeast. Just a few showers zipping through here. But for parts of Northern Ireland, a very wet morning. Southern Scotland, Northern England looking very soggy. And it will be blustery wherever you are. That area of low pressure bringing the wet and windy weather on Friday slowly pulls away through the weekend. So gradually through the weekend, it will be turning a good deal drier. Goodbye.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Join me, Mark White, here on GB News. For more than 2 decades, I've been at the sharp end of reporting crime and security at home and abroad. From the scourge of terrorism to the fight against violent crime and the deepening small boats crisis in the Channel, they're issues you rightly care about, and so do I. As GB News Home and Security Editor, my focus will be on the stories that matter to you.
Hi, I'm Alistair Stewart, and I really hope that you can join me here on GB News. I've been in this game for 40 years and I've made lots of friends, and I try and reflect what they think about the big stories of the day in conversation with me. That's why we call it Alistair Stewart and Friends, and you're a key part of it as well. I always get inundated with emails and messages and texts, and if they're really good, I play them back to you. 12 till 3 every Saturday and Sunday.
You're watching GB News live across the UK and the world on our digital stream.
GB News is Britain's news channel.
We are the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
We are here for you. Don't forget to join our YouTube community by clicking on that subscribe button.
And if you want the GB News app, you can click and catch up on programmes anytime.
We love to hear from you, so email us.
gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Thanks for being part of the GB News family.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Colin Brazier. I've reported from more than 70 countries around the world, covered wars from Afghanistan to Iraq, from Lebanon to the Balkans. I'm trying to bring that experience, that feel for events, to the studio. And something else, I'm ready to give an opinion. Today's stories with a spark. Brazier from 8 p.m. weekdays on GB News.
Hello there, it's 6 o'clock. I'm Michelle Dewberry and this is Dewbs & Co, the show where we'll get into all the stories that have got you talking tonight as the stream of illegal migrants crossing the Channel continues. And of course, you've got the situation in Belarus over there. It's getting more intense. I wonder, should a country protect its borders? If so, how? And there are some who say that borders shouldn't even be a thing and that people should be able to just move freely. What do you reckon to that? And the BBC has become the latest organisation to see sense and quit Stonewall's Diversity Champions scheme. But, among other things, the fact that this supposedly impartial broadcaster was on the scheme in the first place makes me wonder whether Stonewall has a bit too much influence. And baby food. A report today shows just how much sugar some of the trusted brands contain. Is it time for these products to have sugar warnings on them? And Ofcom has stepped in to save phone boxes. It's 2021. Do we still need them? I refer, of course, to phone boxes, not Ofcom. All that and more, but first, the headlines.
Good evening. Your latest GB News headlines this hour. The Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, says the world is closer than ever to the beginning of the end of climate change. He was speaking at COP26 and he said countries must pull out all the stops to keep the 1.5 degrees Celsius target alive. Negotiators from nearly 200 countries are currently scrutinising a first draft of the COP26 agreement, hoping to strike a deal before the summit ends on Friday.
That 2015 agreement in Paris was a significant moment in the fight against climate change, but it was ultimately a pledge of action still to come. And it's very frustrating to see countries that have spent 6 years conspicuously patting themselves on the back for signing that promissory note in Paris, quietly edging towards default now that vulnerable nations and future generations are demanding payment here now in Glasgow.
Boris Johnson speaking in Glasgow earlier. Well, Sir Geoffrey Cox, who's been accused of misusing his office for a second job, says he doesn't believe he's broken parliamentary rules. Labour's called for a standards investigation after an image appeared to show the Tory MP carrying out private work for the British Virgin Islands inquiry from his Westminster office. Speaking to journalists about the issue, the Prime Minister said MPs must prioritise their constituents.
The most important thing is those who break the rules must be investigated and should be punished. And on second jobs, I would say that for hundreds of years, MPs have gone to Parliament and also done work as doctors or lawyers or soldiers or firefighters. If that system is going to continue today, then it is crucial that MPs follow the rules.
Now, a survivor of child sexual exploitation is calling for the immediate resignations of the Rotherham Council leader and the South Yorkshire Police and Crime Commissioner. It comes after GB News revealed up to 1,600 risk assessments have been carried out on children considered to be vulnerable to grooming in the borough since 2017. Rotherham Council is now holding a meeting to discuss child sex abuse in the town, and a survivor who spoke to GB News is demanding action now.
It's a despicable behaviour when we're speaking about children being abused, and I think that has come from Councillor Chris Reid and Alan Billings. If they're incapable of protecting the people and the children of this town, they need to do the right thing and walk away.
Well, in reaction to that, South Yorkshire Police and Crime Commissioner Alan Billings, who was mentioned just there, says he's invited Elizabeth, who you heard speaking, to meet police teams working on child sexual exploitation to help them better understand grooming. And the leader of Rotherham Council, Chris Reid, says he has the deepest of respect for Elizabeth and her views. Lord Frost has told Parliament talks with the EU over the Northern Ireland Protocol are ongoing. The Brexit minister reassured the House of Lords he wouldn't give up on the process until he said it is abundantly clear that nothing more can be done. The Tory frontbencher says the EU needs to remain proportionate in its negotiations.
Gently suggests that our European friends should stay calm and keep things in proportion. They might remind themselves that no government and no country has a greater interest in stability and security in Northern Ireland and in the Belfast Good Friday Agreement than this government.
Border Force vessels are involved in multiple rescue operations in the English Channel today. GB News has been told they're dealing with up to 20 separate incidents. That's after another group of small boats were intercepted today. Yesterday, more than 500 people were found in UK waters. Russia has sent 2 bomber planes to patrol Belarusian airspace at its border with Poland. German Chancellor Angela Merkel asked President Vladimir Putin to intervene over the thousands of migrants converging at the border between the two countries. Putin has blamed the EU for escalating the situation, saying they're trying to strangle Belarus by blocking the border. The Russian president told the German Chancellor that the EU should discuss the crisis directly with Belarus. Here from Monday, people in Wales will need to show a COVID pass to go to cinemas, theatres and concert halls. Protesters have been demonstrating against the extended measures. Currently in Wales, you need proof of full vaccination or a negative COVID test result to get into nightclubs and large events. And lastly, Sir Elton John has been honoured by the Prince of Wales for his career in music and campaigning work on AIDS. The musician received an Order of the Companions of Honour, recognising 5 decades spent in the spotlight, plus his action on HIV. Sir David Attenborough and Dame Judi Dench also received the award.
This is just a reminder, I think, that there's more to do, more work to do for music, more work to do for charity, and life is great. I'm so lucky.
And Sir Elton has waited a long, long time for that. That's all your news for now. I'm back in an hour.
Thanks for that, Polly. Well, with me until 7 o'clock, my panel journalist Ella Wheeler, author Nick Tyrone, and journalist and filmmaker Riccardo Romani. Good evening.
Good evening.
To all of you. And you know the drill on this show by now as well, don't you? It's not just about what we think, it's also about what you think. I want you to get in touch and let me know your thoughts on all of the topics that we discuss and anything else, quite frankly, that's on your mind tonight. Have we missed anything? Is there anything you're at home talking about that we're not? You can get in touch with me on the email gbviews@gbnews.uk, or you can tweet me at Michelle Dewbs or at GBNews. Now, our first story, the issue of migrants crossing the Channel has dominated the headlines recently, but GB News can reveal that at least 600 people have been intercepted by Border Force and lifeboats today alone. This comes, of course, on top of the escalating situation that's happening in Belarus right now. So let's get the latest on that with our Home and Security Editor, Mark White. Good evening to you.
Evening, Michelle.
Yeah, let's start with the Channel. Just update us on the latest there, if you will.
Well, another significant day of activity in the Channel today. At least 22, I think, at last count, in the number of incidents that Border Force and lifeboats have been called to throughout the day. It began first thing in the morning with the first wave of around 10 small boats who crossed the Channel, got into difficulties halfway across, or at least they dialed 999 on their mobile phones to say they were in difficulties. And of course, then the RNLI, Border Force, Coast Guard helicopters have to respond. And those people are intercepted, transferred onto Border Force and lifeboats, and then brought to the Kent coast, usually Dover, where they're processed there. But this follows on from some 500 migrants who were brought ashore yesterday, and we're talking, I think, today at least 600, and that puts the figure well over 22,000 people who have crossed the English Channel so far this year. We're approaching triple the number who have crossed this year than in the whole of last year. It was 8,400 for the whole of last year.
Yeah, Matt, you mentioned it being brought ashore. What happens to these people when they are on UK soil, so to speak?
Well, the first thing that happens, you see them there going up that gangway in Dover Harbour. They're brought in, they're taken to a temporary processing centre. I should say that the Home Office is currently building a multi-million-pound processing centre, so that tells you where they're at in terms of them believing that this is a crisis that they will soon get to grips with. Once they're processed there, then they enter the asylum system, because 99% of those who come across in these small boats then go on to claim asylum, and as part of the asylum process they are sent, usually in the first instance, to hotels and hostels around the country. country before then being settled in slightly longer term accommodation in council houses and the like, because this whole process, even if at the end of the day they are denied asylum, and quite a few of them are actually granted asylum at the end of the day, but even if they are denied asylum, it's a process that doesn't just last weeks or even months, but can stretch into years, because there is an appeal process. Once anyone is turned down, they can appeal and then they can reappeal, and that can last some considerable time.
Yeah, and Mark, before I let you go, just tell me, if you will, briefly about Belarus, what's happening there?
Well, of course, it's a long way away, and many people might think, why should we even care what's happening on the border of Belarus and Poland, and indeed Latvia and Poland and Lithuania and Poland, these 3 EU member states that border Belarus. The reason is we know that a significant proportion, or at least a proportion of those who have crossed into the European Union previously, that do either through southern European routes or this route through Eastern Europe, will end up heading towards the coast of northwest France with an aim of trying to get to the UK. Now, we have to say that the vast majority of those who have spoken at the border with Poland and Belarus say that they want to get to Germany. And that may well be true, that a significant proportion of them do want to get to Germany. But as I say, history has told us that throughout recent years, when people have come into the European Union, quite a significant number do try to head towards the northwest coast of France with a view to getting across, not just by small boats. We've seen it, of course, this migratory route also working on the back of lorries, either through the Channel Tunnel or on the ferries to the UK. It is an issue that the Home Secretary, Priti Patel, says she is determined to get a grip of, but the numbers keep on rising.
Yeah, OK, Mark White, thanks for your update. Ricardo, let me start with you. What are your thoughts on this topic?
Well, I think that we're starting from the wrong perspective, which is like how we protect our borders. I think that that ship has sailed in a way, because the way I see it, migrants are becoming commodities. And you see, there is one reason. If now you see numbers coming from France, and these are an unprecedented number, and guess what? Relationship between France and UK are now not at its best. Same we can say with Belarus. Belarus are using, actually they are taking them from Middle East. They have ferries, and they're carrying these migrants. And because they want to use it like as a token, and because they're being under a very, very restricted criteria with the sanctions, and this is going on everywhere. It's a big business, and it's time to realize. Maybe Australia, 4 years ago, they decided to outsource all the asylum seekers problem. It's a business back then of £2.2 billion. Germany, there is a bidding process to get migrants, because migrants, if you take care of migrants, you receive the funds from the program of the European Community. So we need to look at this with a complete different eyes, because it's not about protecting the border, it's about tackling something that we will deal with for the next 30, 40 years with climate change. And it's a political issue, because migrants are very good also for political campaign. Yeah. They're used for that.
And Ella, I mean, Ricardo there says it's not about protecting borders. I mean, no pun intended here, but that ship has also sailed, he's saying, essentially. But a lot of people will watch the report there, the update from Mark, and they will I think people will actually be quite angry, and I know that they are anyway, because I can see the emails coming in. There's a situation where people are illegally crossing the channel. It's not legal, and we'll talk in a second, I'm sure, about whether or not we should have more legal routes. But for now, they're illegally crossing the channel, dialing 999 and essentially getting a taxi service to the UK, put up in hotels for as long as God only knows how long that process takes, and then essentially, more often than not, ending up in housing. People will be quite angry about that. What's your thoughts?
I'm sure people will be angry about it. I think also people sympathise and empathise with the idea that if you're going to get in a rubber dinghy or strap yourself to the bottom of a lorry, risk suffocation in refrigerated lorries, you've got to a relatively desperate point. And I think that there is some perspective on the nature of why people are making these treacherous journeys, often with babies and kids. And that's not to kind of do the weeping liberal kind of European Union style.
Well, it's mostly
we
single
love
men, though, isn't it? Let's be honest.
But even then, I mean, I think that there is something to be celebrated about the idea of human beings wanting to find and fight for a better life for themselves. I think a lot of the time it's all very well people in the, not people, but political commentators and indeed politicians in the UK are pining about whether or not we see migrants as commodities or whether we put a little few here in Calais, a few there, forgetting not just a kind of humanist level that these are people, but also that the idea of moving country of immigration, of borders being permeable, I think is a good thing. I think it's of political worth to talk about that. But while I disagree with Ricardo about the big business, seeing this a kind of big business way, I do think we need to. This issue isn't going away, and we need to talk about immigration in the round. One of the scandals of the last 5 or 6 years is that everyone has said Brexit was about immigration, and yet we've had no public discussion about immigration. We've had no votes on it. We've had no say. Priti Patel's managed to put in new measures, which I don't agree with. Lots of people don't agree with for various reasons, and we still have this kind of nervousness around talking about immigration because you're either cast as a xenophobe if you say you think borders are important, they need to be policed, or you're a weeping liberal if you say that actually think that more open borders are a good thing, which is what I believe. We're in this also bizarre situation now in which the European Union, which has for a long time tried to cash in on this false idea that it's a migrant-loving, happy-clappy internationalist institution, is now in kind of real serious talks about instituting border walls in response to Belarus. So these are strange times.
Yeah, Nick, I've got to say, I'm looking at everything's coming in. I've got all the socials coming in on all my different screens. That's what I'm doing with my different screens open. And the sentiment is there's quite a lot of anger. There's quite a lot of frustration. We have to do something. I mean, when you look at what's going on in Poland, I mean, they've gone to quite extreme measures. They've enforced a state of emergency. They're blocking things like aid going to the borders there. And whilst it is quite far away, obviously, from us, as Mark was just saying, there will be some kind of knock-on effect. A lot of people are getting in touch just saying, Jay's been in contact, he's saying now to Ella's point, it's not desperation. Jay says it's the lure of what they suggest is free food, free housing, free this, free that. What's your thoughts on this?
Well, actually, further to what Ella was saying, I think the issue tends to get simplified a lot. So on the left, there's a sort of idea that this isn't an issue because the sort of open borders, but let's not discuss the ramifications of that, particularly given the fact that, taken to its nth degree, we're encouraging people to make a very dangerous journey. What's the ethics of that? We don't really talk about that. And then I think on the right, the idea that there's like some magic thing that the government's not doing, some switch they can just sort of like, pluck, and this always gets thrown at every government, whether it's Labour or Tory. And there isn't really. Actually, it's quite complex. It's quite difficult. There aren't really particularly easy answers to what we do about migrant crisis. And as was mentioned by Ricardo, this is something we're going to face for 30, 40 years, maybe longer. I mean, who knows how long we're going to face it.
And I just want to very briefly put some costs on this, by the way. So we talk about what can we do. Mark mentioned as well about 22,000 people have crossed the channel in this way so far this year alone. The cost of this is about £590 million since 2010, 2011, which is about 54 million every single year. And we have to, in my view, we have to do something. I would argue that actually you probably need more sensible, sane, legal ways of trying to apply for asylum. I don't think we probably have enough of that going on at the moment. However, whatever you think, to me, it's not sustainable. 20-odd thousand people just deciding, I want a better life. And Ella, I know you mentioned about desperation. Well, if things are that desperate in your homeland, why are you leaving your wife behind? Why are you leaving your children behind, your sisters? Why would you make this journey on your own as a lone man? And when I think about this country and the situation that this country's in, we've got huge numbers of homelessness. We've got schools that are bursting at the seams. You've got doctors' surgeries that people can barely get into. We've got housing crises in the situation that we don't have enough houses. So you have to sit and look and actually protect your borders, look after your own in some respects, I guess is what I'm saying.
I think that it would be a kind of low low bar and a very pessimistic view of Britain's political future if we said that there's no room for change because our resources are strained.
I didn't say that.
No, but I think the argument
in fact,
that
actually, Ella, I said the exact opposite. I think that you should have legal routes for immigration, and I actually would argue that immigration helps the economy when it's managed properly, when there's strategies behind it, skilled immigration. I absolutely think it's a fundamental part of the economy and of the growth of a country. So I didn't say about setting a low bar that because we've got challenges you shouldn't have it. What I'm saying is it should absolutely be managed properly.
I know, but you're talking about, you know, this idea that, you know, doctors' surgeries and schools are bursting at the seams, which is a question for why the British government is not putting on more resources for its own citizens. Anyone who wants to become a British citizen, it's not the fault. This is where, I'm not saying you say this, but this is where the kind of more lazy anti-migrant route goes down, which is a kind of misanthropic view of, well, we just don't have enough room. We have plenty of room in the UK. And in fact, if you even wanted to go down the kind of Remainer route of, oh, who's going to pour my coffee and who's going to pick my fruit? I mean, we have a labour shortage. I wouldn't be interested in that, but what I, to the point about the left always kind of doing this lazy thing of, oh, just hop in a boat, lads, and see how far you get along. What I'm saying is that the move for and the discussion around asylum seekers is linked to immigration more broadly, and we tend to divide off the like worthy migrants who come over in boats and the unworthy single men who come from Eastern Europe to find a better life for themselves. But just on the point of, if we liberalise, why is it always how can we crack down more? Why isn't it how can we liberalise immigration?
I think we should crack down more on illegal immigration.
I think the immigration, but talk about the immigration system at the moment, the means through which and the checks you have to go through and the sort of status you have to become to immigrate to England and to become a British citizen. It's basically like if you're a working class person living across Europe or anywhere, it's impossible. We have incredibly stringent immigration rules at the moment.
Make it very brief if you can, though, Ricardo, because I do need to move on. But briefly,
very quick. It's again, it's not something UK can solve on its own. It's something that requires a very, very wide group of people that sit down and makes new rules, because these people will come. They don't care about walls, would come. And I want just to remind, to wrap up, that we just left Afghanistan, and the biggest percentage of people coming now are mostly from Afghanistan. So we also need to
hang on a minute. They're coming over from France, which is a perfectly safe country for most people. They're not directly coming from Afghanistan. They were in France. I'm talking the new wave from the
southern. But I'm saying it's so complex that we have so many different ethnicity trying to come here for different reasons, that if we are here trying to simplify, we're not coming to a conclusion. But the problem is we need to act together. Many countries, many heads on the same topic.
I do agree with you on that point, and I also agree with you that we're not going to solve it on this panel in about 10 minutes. So for there, I will leave it. I mean, your emails are absolutely flooding in. I'm going to take a quick break, and I'll come back to some of those when we're back. Also, when we come back, we'll be talking about Stonewall. The BBC is the latest organisation to move away from one of its schemes. I wonder what you think to Stonewall. Do you think it's got a little bit too much power and influence in this country at the moment, or would you like to see more of them? I'll see you in a minute.
On Brazier at 8, as Russia scrambles nuclear-capable bombers, I'll be talking to the Polish Deputy Foreign Minister about why the border crisis is as much about a new Cold War as it is about migrants. Also, as Nicola Sturgeon pledges your cash for climate change, why is it now fashionable to forget the good done by our industrial revolution? And is Prince Harry right when he says that talking about Megxit is misogynistic? That's Brazier from 8.
You're watching GB News live across the UK and the world on our digital stream.
GB News is Britain's news channel.
We are the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
We are here for you. Don't forget to join our YouTube community by clicking on that subscribe button.
And if you want the GB News app, you can click and catch up on programmes anytime.
We love to hear from you, so email us.
gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Thanks for being part of the GB News family.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilized conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Colin Brazier. I've reported from more than 70 countries around the world, covered wars from Afghanistan to Iraq, from Lebanon to the Balkans. I'm trying to bring that experience, that feel for events, to the studio. And something else. I'm ready to give an opinion. Today's stories with a spark. Brazier from 8 p.m. weekdays on GB News.
Join us for Political Correction. We're here every Sunday to correct politics and put you, the people, back in charge.
We talk about all areas of the United Kingdom, including Northern Ireland.
Our debate goes way beyond the Westminster Village. It's about the real country. It's about your opinion. So please, we want you to tell us what you think.
This is Political Correction.
Every Sunday morning from 10 a.m. here on GB News.
Hello there, welcome back. Now, Stonewall, you might be aware of that charity, that organisation. It seems to get in the headlines a lot recently, doesn't it? Well, the BBC have announced itself as the latest organisation to ditch what some might call Stonewall's quite controversial LGBTQ+, I think it is now, Diversity Champions programme. The BBC joins a long list of organisations that have quit. The Cabinet Office, Channel 4, Ofcom and others have pulled out of that scheme. It's basically where companies pay money for the charity Stonewall to advise them on their workplaces and how to make it inclusive for LGBTQ+ people. It comes after the chief executive, by the way, for Stonewall, Nancy Kelly. She claimed that gender-critical beliefs, which is basically the belief that a person's biological sex cannot be changed, were like anti-Semitism. I mean, what? Anyway, much of Stonewall's narrative has become commonplace in society right now, seemingly without much challenge at all, which makes me wonder, have they become a little too influential? Ella?
Yes, I think they have. And probably Stephen Nolan and his team at the Nolan Investigates podcast, which was a fantastic series that put out on BBC, can probably take credit for this move. Because what that podcast and all the research behind it really identified was not that a LGBTQ+ organisation that promotes nice and respectful practices around people with different views and genders and identities, that it wasn't about that, that actually this was the BBC, Ofcom, Scottish Government, several other big institutions, the police, allowing a lobbying group to basically call the shots. So in the case of the BBC and the scheme that BBC was setting up for, the way in which it worked was that Stonewall would set the rules, they'd mark them, the BBC would fail maybe a little bit or need to pick up here or there, pay for training courses, and then come around the next time they'd get marked better. So it's basically a racket. I mean, and lots of people who were listening to that, no matter what their thoughts on the gender debate, you only have to put in place a different group, maybe a religious group, maybe a different political group, and you suddenly see how wrong this is when it comes to impartiality. But the other key point is that I think what you have to realise how much Stonewall has changed. So people like to draw a line between, what it originated as a movement for material gay rights, very important movement in history, up to now, and they say that the fight now against gender-critical views, which absurdly they've, described in the same terms of anti-Semitism, which is a real insult to Jewish people. And that's the same fight as previously. It isn't. Gender ideology is not fact. It's a debate. It's a view. Some people think that, there is biological reality in the fact that sex is real. But the question of gender and how you feel and all of that, it should be something that we can talk about. And what Stonewall specifically says is that you cannot talk about it. And if you do talk about it, like if you're a gender-critical feminist, then you're a bigot. And one of the most appalling parts of that podcast that came out that makes your jaw hit the floor was the fact that Ofcom, well, not just the BBC, but Ofcom was describing groups like the LGB Alliance, which have been, you know, slandered in the press and elsewhere, in particular by Stonewall, as a bigoted hate group that, you know, should be banned from, that Ofcom should take action against. I mean, you are really beyond the looking glass if you believe that, if you think that there's no space for debate. So everyone should welcome this, not on the basis of the gender debate, but just in fairness.
I think, actually, I'd say what we're witnessing is, it feels like Stonewall slightly melting before our eyes, because we're seeing so many organizations bail out, and really big influential ones, and the BBC being a huge one. And I think it's because you were talking about, Ella, about where they began and where they started. And I think, you know, coming from where they started in a much more homophobic society, it was like, we're fighting for these rights, we're fighting for these rights. And somewhere along the line, they didn't really notice, I think, two things. I think one was how there were problems coming up within their consortium, if you like. So a classic one is self-ID. You know, the fact that actually a lot of women, lesbians, but straight women, just women generally saying, I'm not really comfortable with this, there's huge problems with this. And as you say, that's a debate. And at some point...
Well, it should be a debate.
And it
I think
should be
one
a debate.
of the problems is it hasn't
and it
been.
is. And Stonewall sort of taking it like that's it. We've had the debate, it's over. And we haven't, and that's the problem. And it's still an ongoing thing with very different views. And I think the BBC just couldn't kind of continue on with the diversity champion stuff, because at the end of the day, they're sort of saying, well, we have to host debates on this. And if we're sort of part of this Stonewall thing, which is saying, well, the debate's over, it just became increasingly ridiculous. And I think in a way, Stonewall have sort of, they've overshot. They've really gone down this road with the trans stuff, and they've gone so far, and they're so far sort of, I think, outside of mainstream opinion on this stuff that I think they're sort of. I think the BBC coming out of this is really huge.
Ricardo, what's your view?
Well, I'm a little bit overwhelmed by this latest wave of politically correctness and trying to put everything in cages and boxes. And I think at the end of the day, who's suffering by this? The people from LGBT community, because they're not well represented. There are fights inside the organization because trans, they don't get along with women. And then, as Ella mentioned, this other group, the LGBT Alliance, they have different views. It's a fight that who is benefiting? Nobody. It's just for the sake of it. It's
well,
like
people that are benefiting are the people that are coming up dictating to everyone else, this is how you've got to speak, and charging people for that privilege of telling them what to do. Those people, some might argue, are benefiting. What I'm saying is that the way I see it is being constructed is not working. And you have big company walking away for a reason. It's being under a radar for a while. And what my concern is that in this like jungle of right pronoun and right wording and right approach, they're not represented properly. They're not defended the way they should be. I'm maybe a little bit old-fashioned. I'm in the workplace, anywhere, I'm the one to respect anybody beyond the sexuality. I don't want to know the sexuality. So I'm a little bit maybe naive in that. There are also monetary interest. These people receive money, and when the money comes... I mean, right, I'll tell you one of the things that gets me, when I was introducing this topic a minute ago, and I started saying, oh, you know, the charity, the LGBT, and in my head, I was thinking, I'm going to be honest, I was thinking, oh, God, what is the right acronym now? Is it LGBT? Is it LGBTQ? Is it LGBTQ plus I what? And the problem is, unless you get it right, you will get lambasted, you will get called names, you are a transphobe, you are this, you are that. And there's this desperate need for people to try and keep up with this latest thing in order not to offend. And the debate has gone. It's almost like there's been a dictation, it feels like to me, that, you know, you either believe that a trans woman is definitely a woman, probably more a woman than I'm a woman. Unless you believe all these things, then you're an awful human being. Yeah. There's no decent debate, there's no conversation, and I think it's wrong. I do.
I think that's changing. I think this BBC thing, I think we're seeing a sort of backlash, and it sort of starts from things like the BBC coming out of this programme. I think there's a sort of, there was an overshoot by Stonewall that's actually, it's coming back, I think.
Sorry. Well, it's just that the tragedy, I think that the point you're making is that the tragedy of this is that we've stopped talking about the rights or wrongs of being different in society. So the thing that everyone says, whether you're on the gender critical side or anything, is that very few people, apart from a couple of nutters, think it's wrong or should be illegal or bad for people to express themselves how they want. So most people, the vast majority of people, are polite, and then, you know, if you say, well, I want you to call me this, they'll say fine, and all those kind of things. But when you get down to the tricky issues of how do you deal with, as has been in the news recently, prisons, how do you deal with single-sex spaces, things that are not insignificant. They might only occupy a small amount of people in a small space, specific space, but they should be up for debate. What's happened is that we've stopped talking about how tolerant a society should be, and instead we're rowing over who is a woman. Questions that I don't know about you, Michelle, but I have never previously asked myself so many times what it is a woman or how I feel about a woman. Most of the time I don't care. I'm Ella and you're Michelle, and we're more than that. And now it feels like, as Ricardo says, we're being pushed into define ourselves in boxes, which most people aren't interested in.
You build new cages. You basically ghetto yourself, and this is not the point. The point is to be like anybody else, not even being seen like someone different. You're just a human being. I don't care. You can define whatever you like. I don't care. But the very moment, as Michelle said, I feel I have to censor myself because I might hurt someone feeling, I think something is wrong.
Yeah, and I'm going to obviously read a statement from Stonewall in a second, but before I do, I'm going to read something that you actually wrote, Ella, that I found very interesting. Well, I hope it was you. I think it was you. I think it was an article that you wrote. You said the old live and let live motto, is this you? Has been replaced by a new radical demand to codify the way in which we interact with each other along strictly regulated lines. It's no longer acceptable to believe that trans women should be treated with the same respect, dignity and independence as women or trans men and men. We must now believe and repeat when prompted that the latter is indistinguishable from the former. I thought that really hit the nail on the head, hence I read it out. But to be fair, I've got to give Stonewall a right to reply there. Stonewall have said it is a shame that the BBC has decided not to renew its membership, and goes on to say we will continue to engage with the BBC on a number of fronts to champion support for LGBTQ+ colleagues and to represent our communities through their reporting. It goes on to add, it is shocking that organisations are being pressured into rolling back support for LGBTQ+ employees. There you go. Right, going to take a quick break. Remember, Nigel Farage will be here at the top of the hour, and he'll be talking pints with Thomas Skinner from The Apprentice. There you go. I'll see you in a minute.
Coming up Wednesday on Dan Wootton Tonight, is Donald Trump poised for the biggest political comeback ever? I'll be talking politics with Sarah Palin. Should Prince Harry do the honourable thing and quit Netflix because of its planned portrayal of the final days of his mother, Princess Diana? Royal editor Robert Jobson gives his take in Crown Jewels. Are the mainstream media addicted to COVID doom-mongering? You'll get to voice your opinion on that in The Clash. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News.
You're watching GB News live across the UK and the world on our digital stream.
GB News is Britain's news channel.
We are the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
We are here for you. Don't forget to join our YouTube community by clicking on that subscribe button.
And if you want the GB News app, you can click and catch up on programmes anytime.
We love to hear from you, so email us.
gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Thanks for being part of the GB News family.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilized conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Colin Brazier. I've reported from more than 70 countries around the world, covered wars from Afghanistan to Iraq, from Lebanon to the Balkans. I'm trying to bring that experience, that feel for events, to the studio. And something else, I'm ready to give an opinion. Today's stories with a spark. Brazier from 8 p.m. weekdays on GB News.
Hello there, welcome back to Dewbs and Co. That conversation about Stonewall that we just had before the break got you guys talking, that is for sure. Nigel has been in touch saying, I'm a gay man and Stonewall don't represent me at all. He goes on to say that he feels they're doing more harm than good, and in his view, he suggests that they're increasing the level of homophobia. Interesting. Jackie has been in contact and says, my daughter is trans. She gets on quietly with her life and chooses who she tells and who she doesn't. She makes her own way in life and expects no special treatment. Jackie goes on to say that her daughter doesn't, I mean, she uses strong words. She says that she hates these trans activists, sees a picket line, and always asks the question, how many of these people campaigning on this are actually trans? According to Jackie, she feels that her daughter says that they give trans people a bad name and do not speak for her. So there you go. Get in touch and keep your comments coming. But let's move on. Do you have a baby? Have you ever done any weaning? I'm going through this journey at the moment. I'll tell you, it's a minefield, but health campaigners are warning now that some snacks that are sold as weaning or infant food products contain alarming amounts of sugar and could be encouraging a sweet tooth in a child from a very early age. Action on Sugar have analysed 73 baby and toddler products on sale in the UK and found that only 6 have met the criteria for green, or basically low, quantities of sugars. 27 others had what they call red, or high levels of sugar. As just mentioned there, Nick, I'm weaning my little boy at the moment. It's hard work knowing what to do, what not to do. And as a busy mum, I've got to say, I have brands that I trust. I'm also a bit tight, so when I go into a supermarket, I see my trusted brand, I choose whichever one is on special offer, because I am Northern after all, and I buy it. I never look at the sugar content because I just trust that these guys have done that work for me. And if it's a kid's product, they've checked it out, I don't need to worry, and it's sugar-free often, I would hope for. If not sugar-free, then very minimal sugar. Anyway, point is, these guys are now calling for a traffic light system to be on these products that give you warning, red, amber, green, about the sugar content. I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, so do I. I think it's really good. I just think I've been in this position. I've got 3 kids. I've been through it. You know, you're tired. You, exactly as you said, you just want to go and grab it and feel like you can trust it. It'd just be really nice to just have something that just warned you, particularly because I didn't particularly want my kids to eat high sugar things.
No,
I think a lot of parents don't. And just to be clear, I'm not advocating banning anything. I'm not saying, fine. It's just, I think having some sort of system where there's a warning, where we just know how much sugar, particularly for products made for for infants, for 1-year-olds, that age range, it's just really good to know.
Yeah, Ella, my view is very simple. Just label it clearly and then parents can make informed choice. If you want your kid, if you don't mind your kid eating something with sugars in it, up to you, who cares? But if you've got the labelling very quick, very effective, then a parent can choose what they want to do much easier.
I think that it would be slightly amiss to suggest that this was just about better information for people. I mean, Action on Sugar is a campaign group that has a purpose of being anti-sugar, and I think what this really smacks of to me is a patronising attitude towards parents, and indeed mothers in particular. We have a history of this. I mean, UK law based on WHO guidelines currently means that formula milk is not allowed to be advertised as the same as or equal to breast milk, even though scientifically there is no problem with it, and people have been indeed I was a formula baby and no problems, even though I've got a mouthful of fillings. That's more because I was a teenager hooked on fruit pastels rather than my mum giving me sugary snacks. But we have this idea that women in particular need to be nudged and moved in the right way to make right decisions for their children, or else all hell will break loose. We've also got suggestions at the moment to bring in regulation around drinking for women of childbearing age, because we think that women can't be trusted in ways like that when they're getting pregnant. And all of this smacks of a really kind of patronising attitude.
What's patronising about telling a busy mum mum, because it is, as you often say, it's me. I'm the consumer. I'm a busy mum. I'm weaning my kid now, and I fly into a supermarket. Like I said, I trust certain brands, so I don't like rummage around everywhere. I trust certain brands. I look for what's on offer, and off I go. However, if this traffic light was on there with a red thing for me, my personal choice, my informed choice was that's not for me, that's not for my kid, and I would just go buy something else.
I think
what's patronising about informing me?
I think that if people want to check the sugar content and stuff like that on their kids' food, they just flip it over and do it. I mean, it's on the time.
I don't have time to do that.
I think it's again slightly patronising to suggest that if women, and we do mainly talk about women here, because women do most of the child rearing and the decisions in the supermarket, unfortunately, but that it's women either don't have the time or they don't care. I think it's delusional to suggest that this is just about more information to people. This is part of a wider, to use the phrase that everyone does, nannying state narrative that suggests that citizens can't make decisions on their own. They have to be nudged, whether it's taken away from the checkouts, put information on cigarette packets, now sugar on baby food. I mean, where does it end? Leave us alone.
I would come in and say...
Let's let Ricardo. Ricardo, I want to know your thoughts.
We're kind of worried about the sink leaking water in the sink. While we don't care about the hurricane that is striking the house, because kids starting 18 months, they are targeted by fast food company. They go into in their brain, and they create an environment in which kids, they go for stuff that is not good for them. And parents, in a way, they have to... so this is the real problem. And again, yeah, you want to put... I agree, maybe I agree, but it sounds like a fig leaves, like over a bigger problem, the way we feed our children. I don't have children. I feel a little bit an outsider here. But what I think is there's being kids targeted because they're using all kind of advertising, financial institution advertising, even in advertising that involve alcoholics in America. So, and now we want to put a mark on a product on the shelf. Yes, let's do this. But again, I think the problem with our children is wider, and it requires...
It's wider than just weaning, says Ricardo. Anyway, get in touch and let me know. Are you like me? Do you just dash into the supermarket and time is of the essence? Or do you have time to peruse the packaging and look at the sugar content and make your decisions? Get in touch and let me know. Tom has got in touch and said, Michelle, consider this my very last email to GBNews, because you never read them out. I do, Tom. I just get emails and contacts and everything flying through, so I do my very best to squeeze in as much as I can, and I love hearing from you. And the ones that I don't read out, by the way, I always read them on my way home, so I do take in your feedback if I don't read it out, that is for sure. Anyway, let's move on. Red fern boxes, they are a bit of a British icon, aren't they? Unless you live in Hull, by the way, because there we don't have red ones, we have cream ones, but that's a different story. Anyway, as of today, there's been a glimmer of hope to protect some of these ones that BT are trying to decommission. Ofcom has decided to save 5,000 of them from the scrap heap after introducing tougher new rules. The communications watchdog says that some areas still need them, especially if mobile phone signal is poor. Ricardo, briefly, your thoughts on this. Do we need these payphone boxes?
I do. I think we do. Maybe I'm a romantic, but I've been to...
What's romantic about a payphone? The ones I've been in stink of weed. There's nothing romantic
Everybody
in
has
them.
a picture everywhere in the world with a picture with a red box. But beside that, I've been to an exhibition this summer, and there was a couple of a married couple in their late 60s. They didn't have a smartphone, and they couldn't get in the exhibition, because now it's all about downloading the app, getting the ticket. So there is a portion, maybe a small one, that is not as connected as we think. And they might need in their small neighborhoods, in their small village, that little kind of safe boat, because also it's tradition and because we are not all so connected to the world. So I'm a little bit
So you're
hesitant.
in favour of keeping them. Ella, your thoughts?
I'm in favour of keeping them, perhaps for a bit of a weird reason, which is that I've noticed among particularly Gen Zers, or a younger generation than me anyway, there's a real aversion to talking on the phone, that people prefer to text, and it's a kind of common joke among young people that, you know, oh, don't call me, I hate talking on the phone to the doctor. And I think that's really pathetic. I think anything that promotes telephone use and picking up the phone. I mean, even so many of my friends talk about the problem of, you know, being ghosted after dates and stuff like that. If we made it more normal to pick up the phone and more abnormal to rely on text, I think that would be a good thing. But also, I mean, my husband's family live on a farm. You have to kind of get under the cow or go around the back barn to find signals. So on a practical level, I think these are useful too.
Nick, shall we keep them?
I just think, you know, make it local. So if it has a use somewhere and people want to keep them, great. If there's somewhere where people don't think there's a use, we should get rid of them. So I'd sort of devolve this.
So, by the way, I think I might have a picture somewhere, because in Hull we don't have red ones, we have cream ones, Kingston Communications. I think we've got some pictures. I mean, even if I don't have a picture, I was going to say, even if I don't have a picture, you could probably imagine what a cream telephone box looks like, can't you? But there you go. Yes, we're very special. We are in Hull. Make of that what you will. Now, listen, before I go, there's so much talk right now, isn't there? It's still COP26, etc. Lots of stuff going on about the environment. What should we do to look after the environment? What shouldn't we do to look after the environment? And the focus has switched a lot to eating meat-free and whether or not we should change our diet to look after the planet. And it's not just about meat, by the way. Fake fish is on the menu now. Lots of different products have come on sale. This is, of course, as I'm saying, to protect the planet, to protect the climate, to protect the oceans. You name it, there's been lots of documentaries, hasn't there, about it. And it got me thinking, would you change your diet to save the planet? It's something I often talk about. Sometimes I think about doing it, but I've never really put it into action. Well, today, look at this, ladies and gentlemen. I've got a little sample. This, what I'm about to share with my panel, this is fake fish. I'm going to try and show you it. It looks awful. I mean, I don't know what camera to do it on. This is like a fake salmon. We're all going to try it. It's like, I'm going to show you what it's like. This is like a fake salmon. This is, there you go. This is, where am I going to do it? There. Can you see this? This is like a salmon. They're telling me which cameras to put it on. I've got no idea, so I hope you can see it. So this is like a paste. I can't smell it because I've got long COVID. I can't smell anything, so I've no idea what it smells like. Does it smell like salmon?
It doesn't really, no.
No, but it's not bad.
It's not bad. It's not great either.
It tastes absolutely nothing like salmon to me.
It doesn't taste or feel like fish, no. But then lots of these meat-free substitutes don't. I'd eat it if I was hungry enough.
Yeah, so would I. Yeah. I don't mind
anything.
it, I just don't really love it.
A glass of wine would do it. A glass of wine. So
but do you think this tastes like, so this is the alternate to, this is what we all should be doing, by the way, if we really care about the planet. We should be doing this. We should be going out, buying these alternatives. It's about, I don't even really think I like it.
It's got a bit of an aftertaste.
We need to have the, like, you know, Piers Morgan bucket for the vegan sausage roll for someone to puke in. But I'm actually with, you know, what happened to Jamie Oliver's, I disagree with Jamie Oliver on a huge amount, but what happened to his idea of just stop fishing the really overfished things and start eating all the weird and wonderful fish that's out there that tastes really good? I mean, you know, you could eat this. It's got a lot of salt and pepper on it. That's why it tastes nice. And much like you have to fry tofu 7 different ways to make it taste good.
Yeah. You have to cook it and stuff.
But, you know, there are, you know, eating some of the weird things, in particular eating some of the weird things when it comes to meat. You know, I'm a big fan of eating all haggis and tripe and all different things. We don't just have to have fillets.
I don't know where I'm supposed to be pointing this to. I'm just going to, there. I mean, I'm trying, I don't want it to slip off the plate down onto my iPad, because then I'm going to have to fish it out when I get home, which I'd rather not do. Anyway, so would I eat that instead of salmon to save the planet? I don't know, I'm not even a big salmon eater really, but look at it, it's kind of, I'd give it a go, I don't know. You guys have been getting in touch with me as well. Alex has got in contact, sent me a lovely picture, so he has, or she has, of a phone box at the end of their road. Says, I want to show you a picture of the phone box at the end of my driveway, which I refurbed at my own cost. Everyone loves it. He says, it's part of our heritage and it's so iconic and it's wonderful to keep it. And I feel like I really just want to now get in my teeth. So sorry, that's really, it's not very.
We're not making a case for the planet here.
We're not.
I haven't had lunch, so I'm going to keep going.
You can have it. Have it all. Have it all. Apparently, I'm supposed to be telling you about all the wonderful documentaries that you can all watch as well. But you know what? It's 2021. You can Google it. If you're sitting here and you think to yourself, what are these fantastic documentaries that I can watch about alternatives to meat? Just put it into Google. I think there's lots of them. Still, you're all getting in contact as well about the migrant situation. I've got to say, I'm sorry, I'm now spitting. This is why you shouldn't eat things on television. I'm spitting fake salmon at you, Nick.
It's completely fine.
I'm sorry.
I know.
We've been warned, actually.
Yeah.
That happened. So don't worry.
Yeah, I'm sorry. So many of you are getting in contact saying, you know, that we should be doing more to protect the borders. No one, I have to say, nobody has contacted me to say that we shouldn't have borders and it should just be a free-for-all. But keep your contacts coming in. Lots of you as well getting in touch about Stonewall. Roy has been in touch saying, I'm sick of everyone when it comes to baby food telling us what to eat. We should just be able to make our own decisions. Sue says, I've never even bought baby food. I've always made my own. My daughter, she goes on to say, is doing the same. Just get yourself a hand food blender and away you go. Anyway, that's all for now, thank goodness, because I want to go brush my teeth. Ricardo, Nick, Ella, thank you very much for your company tonight. Thank you, of course, for yours. Keep getting in touch with me on the email overnight if there's anything that you think we should be talking about. And I'll be back tomorrow, 6 o'clock until 7 o'clock. So you have yourself a very good evening. I'll see you tomorrow.
Good evening. Most of us will have a dry day tomorrow, likely to be fairly dull to begin with, and some thick fog patches around in places as well, but steadily, for many, it'll get a little brighter through the day. There's a couple of weakish weather fronts close by to the UK, but developing out in the Atlantic, there's this area of low pressure. That will bring a spell of wet and windy weather. Starts on Thursday night and continues through much of Friday. But back to this evening, and still some patchy rain across parts of the Midlands, South Wales and East Anglia. That's fizzling out. There's another band of wet weather working into northern Scotland. It's still pretty blustery across the far north, but lighter winds in these central areas will allow it to turn quite chilly and could allow some fog patches to form parts of northern England.